Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to join us and making our sixth Capital Pathways Intercession celebration possible this evening. It really seemed like just yesterday when we hosted our first ever Capital Pathways Intercession celebration back in 2016. So when folks for the first time from all different walks of lives came together as a community to celebrate the amazing accomplishments and the hard work that our students have been engaged in throughout session in their internship experiences. And fast forward to today, we now would have served 196 Capital Pathways alumni and partnered with 68 different host organizations, from nonprofits to state agencies, corporations, and law and lobbying firms. Right now, I am completely filled with joy and feeling so thankful to share space with many familiar names and faces. And to those who are joining us for the first time, welcome and thank you for choosing to spend your time with us this evening. I also want to recognize the elected officials who are in the room with us this evening, Representative Esther Abaje, Steve Elkins, Kristen Robbins, and Carlos Mariani. You are all key pillars of support in our work and truly making a difference by helping create leaders at the decision-making table that are personally connected to and reflective of our state's many diverse communities. And I am super excited to be one of your program hosts for this evening. My name is Kalia Shong, and I am the Capital Pathways Program Manager. So throughout these past 6 months, I have had the great honor of working closely with and getting to know our student cohort. Many students came to our program hungry to learn, to be engaged, and to be involved in the policymaking process. And I am so very proud to have been able to be a part of their journey, to have seen them grow their confidence and leadership, to see them come together in solidarity as they all supported one another in navigating at times challenging virtual programming and internship experiences. And above all, to have seen them come to better understand their role, their place, and the power that they can hold in the policy-making space. After we wrapped up our last program year, we were at a place where we were unsure what this 2021 program year would look like. With the ongoing COVID pandemic, we knew that Capital Pathways would have to be completely virtual in order to keep everyone safe. What we did not know was if there would even be students interested in participating in a virtual internship experience. We did not know if organizations will feel prepared to host and to mentor a student virtually. And we also did not know if we would have the capacity and the know-how to give students a meaningful virtual program experience worthy of their time and of their commitment. The one thing we did know going into this 2021 year was that no matter the uncertainties and no matter the what ifs, we were definitely going to bring Capital Pathways back again. This program was here to stay. And in the midst of the COVID pandemic, the organizing around community safety and the uprisings against racism and racial injustice, now more than ever, a program like Capital Pathways was needed. And we found that so many others, including you joining us tonight, believed in Capital Pathways just as much as we did. And here at the Citizens League, we are so honored to have Capital Pathways be a part of our work and community. We believe in empowering all people to engage in civic life and public policy in order to make Minnesota a better place to live and to work for everyone. This mission is the root of our work and perfectly aligns with our Capital Pathways program, where we provide college students who identify as Black, Indigenous, and people of color, or BIPOC, the necessary training, experience, and support networks needed to be more informed about, more involved with, and to actively participate in the legislative process and in policy making. Our program is about pulling in and about creating pathways and opportunities for BIPOC youth to learn, to be seen and validated in a government that unfortunately still just really has a long ways to go when it comes to representing the many diverse voices in our communities. This helps us move closer to a world where more communities are involved in the decision-making process and are informed and empowered to create just and equitable policy solutions to issues that impact them the most. Next slide. All right. Next slide, Jacob. Thank you. While we work hard to maintain and to grow the program on our end, none of this would be possible without the generosity and the support of those who believe in our program and our mission. We want to take this time to thank our event champion sponsors, Frederickson and Byron, who was also one of our host organizations this year, Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Minnesota, and our other event sponsors, which includes Pat and Wendy Bourne, Lydia Crawford, John and Maureen Knapp, Jason Allanding, Peter Haggard, and 4 of our host organizations, Lockridge Grindal, the Minnesota Council of Nonprofits, the Minnesota Budget Project, the Minnesota Center for Environmental Advocacy, and O'Rourke Strategic Consulting. Next slide. We also cannot forget our individual donors and each and every one of you for joining us this evening, and our major program funders who come back to support our program year after year. The Dick Joyce H. McFarland Family Fund of the Minneapolis Foundation, the Bigelow Foundation, McKnight Foundation, and the Schwann's Corporate Giving Foundation. Lastly, we want to thank our Capital Pathways student cohort and 32 host organizations that we partnered with this year. You are the heart of our program, and without you, none of us would be here this evening. Next slide. And it is clear that the past, the present, and the future success of this program is a group effort. Beginning in May, we launched an online campaign to support our Capital Pathways program through GiveMN. With your help and the support of many others, we have raised over $6,000 of our $10,000 goal, all of which will go directly to bring Capital Pathways back for the 2022 program year. Currently, we are more than halfway to our goal, and you can take part and make a difference by giving to the program today. You can find the link to give on the screen, in the chat, which was just dropped in, or text Citizens League to 243725. With your gift, we can continue to open access and to create pathways to policy careers for the next generation of BIPOC civic leaders for the years to come. Thank you to those who have already championed this program within your various networks, to those who will make a gift this evening, and to the many of you who have been committed to Capital Pathways for many, many years. We are so grateful for your ongoing trust, your dedication, and your support. Without you, Capital Pathways would not have evolved into the program that it is today. So thank you for standing alongside us in creating high-level impact for both our students who are being mentored as they develop their interests and their careers in policy, and our host organizations who are learning more about the communities that they serve as they work with our students. You are all playing a critical part in making an impact in our communities and in the state of Minnesota. Next slide. So I would now like to introduce you to our 2021 Capital Pathways cohort. This year, we served a cohort of 32 students. And while not all are joining us today due to prior commitments, I'm super excited for you to meet the amazing students who are with us this evening and to hear from them about their learnings and their experiences this past session. To our student cohort in attendance, I'm going to request you to please turn on your cameras during this time. When I call your name, please unmute your mic and introduce yourself with your full name, the college or university you are currently attending, your year in school for the upcoming 2022 school year, and please share with us your response to the following question. Reflecting on your time as a Capital Pathway student, what was one highlight of your experience? So I'm going to have these questions be dropped into the chat so that you can refer to them during this time. Once you're done with your introduction, please mute yourselves again and I will call on the next student. And to all of our other attendees, I encourage you to look to the right of your screen. You will see there is a view button here. And if you click on it and select speaker view, during this time, this will make it easier for you to see each individual student as they introduce themselves. And I'll give you all a moment to do so before moving on. All right, well, let's meet our student cohort. So the first student I will call on will be Mai Su. So Mai Su, can you please unmute yourselves and introduce yourself?
Hi, yes. Hi, everybody. My name is Mai Su. I am a junior at the University of Minnesota, well, upcoming senior at the University of Minnesota Twin Cities. One of the highlights from my Capital Pathways experience was honestly just getting to learn more about legislation, just because I didn't have any background in public policy, and then seeing how it relates to what I'm interested in, which is public health. And because I was placed with Minnesota Environmental Partnership, I was able to tie in those two things together. And it was a very nice experience for me to gain a little bit of background on that.
Thank you so much for sharing, Mai Su. Our next student, Kiana.
Hi everyone, my name is Kiana Vang. I am a senior at the University of Minnesota Twin Cities, and I was placed with the Minnesota Citizens for the Arts. I think one of the highlights this year for the program was definitely Advocacy Week for us. MCA held it, and it was just kind of seeing all of the work that I did kind of go into action and being a part of the action that was taking place and really seeing how it affects the art community. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Kiana. And Eric, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, of course. All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Eric Castellanos, and my host organization was the Center for Economic Inclusion. They let me in as their policy research intern. And currently, I'm studying data analytics and American politics at the University of St. Thomas, and I'm also a rising senior as well. One highlight of my time in the Capital Pathways program was probably getting to know the amazing people within my host organization and others, and then also just playing a role and helping out with their good work in the Minnesota legislature and having a great first experience in the system. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. And Jada, can you please introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Jada. I'm an upcoming junior at the University of St. Thomas studying biology and criminal justice. And I was placed at Catholic Charities, and probably one of the highlights of my experience was getting the opportunity to participate in the weekly legislative updates that my host organization did. They were really fun, and yeah.
Thanks, Jada. Rosie?
Hi everyone, my name is Rosie Salem. I am a rising senior at the University of St. Thomas, and I was placed with Frederickson and Byron. And I think one highlight of my experience was having the pleasure to work with everyone on the government relations team and getting to meet with a bunch of different legislators and kind of seeing how policy implementation works, how the legislative session works, and really seeing like how our voices matter both in and outside of the legislature.
Thanks, Rosie. Mania?
Hi, everyone. My name is Mania, and I was hosted by the Minnesota Center for Environmental Advocacy this session. And I actually just graduated with my Bachelor of Science in Public Health this spring semester from St. Catherine University. And I will actually be finishing my Master of Public Health this coming up school year. And so with that said, one highlight of my time as a Capital Pathways student, or more specifically at MCEA, was just indulging myself in a genuine, warm, and like nourishing organization that fosters change and collaboration. And so it was a huge different perspective that I gained. Yeah.
Thanks, Manya. And again, congratulations so much on graduation. And Nithya.
Hi, my name is Nithya. I am a rising sophomore at the University of Minnesota. I was placed at Hennepin Healthcare, and I would say one of my highlights would be, I think one week when they were meeting with the federal legislators, because of COVID, they were doing it all remotely. So I was actually able to attend and meet with some of the federal legislators from Minnesota, which was a really cool opportunity to see kind of that behind the scenes work. So yeah, that would be my.
Great. Thanks, Nithya. Em?
Hi, my name is Em. I was placed with Friends of the Boundary Waters Wilderness. I am a student at Hamlin. I'll be a senior this upcoming year. One highlight for me, or actually a couple, is first of all, I always thought I was really bad at networking, and I got a lot of experiences to be able to do like informational interviews with people, and it made me a lot more confident with that. And a second was being placed with a nonprofit. I've discovered I really like the nonprofit world and mission-driven organizations. Thanks.
Thanks, Sam. Samantha?
Hi, everybody. So my name is Samantha, and I recently just graduated also from Gustavus with a BA's in sociology. And I was paired with a host organization named Rethos Places Reimagined. And so two main highlights would have to be just learning more about historic preservation. It's an area of policy I never really had exposure to or background knowledge coming in. So going through that process was really great. And also just being equipped with more resources and guidance to be able to analyze and debrief policy, because I never really got to do that during my undergrad years. So yeah.
Thanks, Samantha, and congratulations on your graduation as well. Jessie?
Hi, everyone. My name is Jessie Loevano, and I was placed at the Minnesota Budget Project. I am currently a rising senior at Hamlin University. And my highlight of my experience was probably getting to see the passion and excitement that so many people bring to their work. Like, it was absolutely amazing being able to be in spaces where people were vulnerable and open and just really transparent with what drove them to be in public policy. And that was definitely a highlight for me.
Great, thanks, Jessie. And our last student who is here with us this evening, Rain.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rain Reinhardt, and I was hosted this session by Lockridge Grindle Nowen. I actually just finished my third year at Hamlin University, and I'm going to be going to Mitchell Hamlin Law School in the fall. And one of my highlights from my program was probably the chance to meet my own district representative, Athena Hollins, and have a really candid discussion with her and get to just discuss important issues that I have a lot of passion about. So it was just a really great experience.
Thanks, Rain, and congrats on your acceptance into law school. That's so exciting. So thank you to all the students that joined us this evening and were able to share a little bit about yourselves. Thank you so much. I think a lot of folks have been really, really, really eager to meet all of you and to hear a little bit more about your experiences this past session. So thank you for sharing a little bit of that with us. Please join me in congratulating this incredible and inspiring students and for being a part of our program. And also for advancing extremely critical policy issues alongside their host organizations this past session. Thank you for your commitment to the program, your civic leadership, and for engaging in policymaking that helps make Minnesota more reflective and more accountable to our state's many diverse communities. So while you did not get to hear from our entire cohort this evening, please make sure to join us for the full program because we have prepared a special presentation to highlight and honor each and every one of our students this year. We will share this presentation at the end of the program, so please do make sure to stay for that. Now we are going to transition to our panel composed of 2 Capital Pathways alumni and 1 student from the current 2021 cohort to discuss the importance of creating pathways to policy for BIPOC communities. I now welcome Amanda Kujbahari, our Director of Public Policy, who will moderate our panel this evening. And I'll pass it over to you, Amanda. Thank you, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you, Kalia. And congratulations, everyone. That was, it was so nice to see you all again. I think I've had just a few moments with you over the course of you being in the program, and it was just really fun to hear. And congratulations to everyone that is graduating. That is so exciting. So good evening, everyone. Everyone else who's here, thank you all so much for being here. My name is Amanda Kunchbahari. As you can see on the screen in front of you, I am the Director of Public Policy with the Citizens League, and just super excited to be here. Grateful to Kalia for asking me to engage in this conversation with some of our alum, and I'm super excited to jump in. So we have an amazing group of panelists today, and they're gonna kind of go a little deeper into the program and their experiences. And so I know we're running a little behind on time, so I want to make sure that we jump into that conversation. And so I hope you will join me in welcoming our different speakers and panelist members. So I'll just kind of list them off, and I think they'll be joining me on the screen here. First, we have Biftu Busa, who is the Social Responsibility and Equity Manager at Optum and is a 2018 Capital Pathway alum. I believe Marco Hernandez is going to be joining us too. Marco is the Public Policy Director at Copal and a 2017 Capital Pathways alum. And then we have Nithya Venkat, who is a current Capital Pathways student. And you actually heard from Nithya from the University of Minnesota, and she was hosted by Hennepin Healthcare this session. So welcome, Biftu. It's good to see you again, Biftu. It's been a little bit. And so good to see you, Nithya. It was fun to connect with you when we talked about public speaking during Capital Pathways. So excellent to see you both. I've had a chance to get to know you both. I don't think I've connected with Marco yet, so I'm really excited for when Marco joins us and we can kind of dive in to these questions with Marco as well. But Biftu and Nithya, I want to just make sure that our audience has a chance to hear from both of you. So if you'd be willing to introduce yourselves, talk a little bit about what you're currently up to, whether that's work or if there's something personal that you're doing that you want to share, just whatever's kind of speaking to you tonight. And I would love to know, how did your participation in Capital Pathways kind of influence the way you understand policymaking, and how did it influence your role in policymaking as well? And so Biftu, if you are willing to start, we'd love to hear from you.
Yes, definitely. Thank you all so much for having me. Can you hear me? I want to make sure. Okay, perfect. So again, my name is Biftu Busa, she, her pronouns. Just to share a little bit about my background, I heard that there was one of the interns who graduated from St. Kate's. I'm a Katie as well, studied public health, so really excited for all of the graduates, and just want to also say congratulations to all of the 2020 Capital Pathways interns. This is kind of taking me back to my time as a Capital Pathways intern. I didn't get to actually go to the end of the year celebration my year, so it's really excited to be here and celebrate with you all. But a little bit about my background. So again, I studied public health. I went to St. Catherine University, graduated in 2018, so the same year that I did my internship with the Capital Pathways program. And I was partnered with Lutheran Social Services in Minnesota, and so that was a really great experience for me. I loved my time working with them and just getting the experience that I was able to get from that. But before I talk about my experience more and kind of the takeaways from that, I can talk a little bit about what I'm doing right now. So I know Amanda had mentioned that I and Social Responsibility and Equity Program Manager at Optum, which is a global health services organization. And so within the work that I do there, I really focus on advancing health equity. And I do that by leading our employee and volunteer engagement opportunities for Optum. And so the program that I primarily focus on is our pro bono program, and that really focuses on connecting and supporting organizations on the ground. And so these are organizations across the US and also internationally, kind of building up their capacity by connecting them with employees who have the skill sets and the knowledge and expertise that they're looking for in order for them to continue to fulfill their mission. And so it's us providing pro bono services to organizations who are working on the ground, who are supporting communities, and really making sure that they have access to the services that they need, particularly around healthcare. And so that's one of the things that I really focus on in my work, and is something that I'm very passionate about: health equity, making sure that marginalized communities have access to the health and wellness that they need, so that they can continue to live out their lives as healthy as possible. And so that's kind of the work that I'm doing right now at Optum. And a little bit about kind of my background, which kind of connects to Capital Pathways a little bit, is I started out in policy through this experience. And I kind of really didn't think about it as much until I, was about to be on this panel and was like wanting to connect and see kind of what my experience has been since I left the internship program. But through my experience working with Lutheran Social Services, I was at the Capitol a lot. I learned so much about just the state legislature process, all the different key folks that you need to be aware of, all the different elected officials, kind of who is involved in what committees, what my interests were. I tracked a lot of bills, went to a lot of hearings. It was really exciting and it was very new to me. And so that's when I kind of realized how much I was interested in policy and kind of where I could engage. And through that experience, I actually met a ton of folks who kind of got me into the role I was in when I first graduated college, which is really exciting, my first kind of full-time opportunity. And so I was at the Capitol, like I said, a lot, and I met some of the LAs that work there, and it was connecting with them to set up meetings for folks and just wanting to meet with elected officials. But through those connections that I made, I ended up a little bit down the line after I graduated, working for Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, and it was through the connections I made at the beginning in Capital Pathways that actually got me there. So networking, even when you don't even think you're networking, is very important thing, because it's literally how it opens the doors to so many opportunities. So just wanted to put that in there really quick. But that's kind of how I first got into my role working for Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. I went through several different positions in the office, but ended up as a community representative. And that's where I really got to work locally with elected officials, community organizations, agencies, across the board to address the needs of the community here in Minnesota's Congressional 5th District. And so that's what kind of first got me, into policy world. And from there, I've kind of worked in various different areas, but I just wanted to share a little bit of that background and how important my internship with Capital Pathways was.
That's awesome. Thank you for walking us through that pathway too. I think it's so important for folks to kind of hear that it's not always a linear path, right? It usually often isn't. And really appreciate you kind of dropping it in there, the power of networking. Huge, huge, huge. And so it's just kind of cool to see and hear about how your career has kind of unfolded and the power of that too. So thank you, Beef too. Nithya, how about you? And I can repeat the question too if you need it, but
I think I have it. It's like, how did Capital Pathways influence the way you understand policymaking, right?
Yeah, and about you, we want to hear a little more about you too.
Sure. So I'm Nithya. I just finished my freshman year at the University of Minnesota. I'm doing biology and global studies because I also have an interest in public health. So funny, so many public health people in this group. But during Capital Pathways, I was placed with Hennepin Healthcare under Susie Emmer and Kade Wallace. And Susie works more on the hospital side, and then Kade works more on the county side. So it's nice to see like a mix of like health and human services. And it was really interesting because Hennepin Healthcare is kind of like a bridge between those two things. Like they do a lot of county work as well as like hospital work. So for someone like me who's interested in public health, which includes like housing, which includes mental health, not just like healthcare, it was a really interesting and really enlightening experience. Right now, I'm doing a program called Urban Scholars, which is also like a pipeline program run through the city of Minneapolis. And I'm placed at a corporation called API Group, and I'm doing a lot of like data, e-learning, stuff like that. Not exactly public health, but we have time to get there. And then I would say that like, in terms of how capital pathways influence my view on policy making, I've always been a very like black and white person politically. Like you're either right or you're wrong, or like I'm very like strong in my values. But I think looking at it from a policy making perspective, I learned more to like live in the ambiguity. Like you can make good decisions and you can like be a part of good initiatives without like having a label on your political identity, without like saying like I am X, Y, and Z. And like by working in sort of that like gray area, you can still like you can accomplish a lot more than you would by just being a like having a political label, I guess is what I would say I learned about like policy making. And also that it's not like as black and white as I feel like I thought it was when I was just like a freshman, because I feel like I'm very young and I feel like I have a lot of ideas about what politics is, but I don't really like know. So it's nice to just like be in it and learn and like see how a lot of that relationship building works. And because at the core of it all is relationships. And I don't know, very interesting.
Yeah, Nithya, thank you. And I think you are spot on. All of it and all of the work that we do at the Citizens League, and shout out to the Citizens League staff who are on here. It is relationships, right? And I'm sure Beef 2 would agree with that too. And the nuance, right? It's not usually black and white. So I really appreciate you sharing that this program kind of helped you expand even like how we do policymaking and the importance of that ambiguity and that kind of unknown space sometimes, because we operate that a ton in our work that we do. So that's great. Thank you both so much for sharing that. So what I want to do is get into a little more specific questions that kind of tie to your experiences. So Beef 2, just thinking about, you explained kind of your pathway getting to where you are today at Optum, but the many different kind of touch points that you had to policymaking. Some of them were really clear cut when you worked with the Congresswoman. Some of them weren't so much, right? And so I'm really interested if you can talk a little bit about and share some advice, right, for folks who are thinking about entering the policymaking space and wanting to create change kind of where they're at. What kind of advice do you have for them, or even just, words of wisdom that you have? Because I think oftentimes people feel like they can't make a difference unless it's a formal position that you have in a policymaking space.
That's a great question. I'm glad that you brought that up, Amanda. So different touch points. So as you mentioned in Congresswoman Omar's office, a lot more clear kind of where those touch points are. Though I was working in our district office, which is located in Minneapolis, we still worked very closely with a lot of elected officials, community organizations, and state agencies kind of on the ground to talk about the work that they're doing, how we can support them locally, but then also how can we escalate the work that they're doing and the needs that the community have to a federal level. What does that look like? What policies do we need to create to support people? And so I really focus on issues around K through 12 education, agriculture, so really focus on like food access, SNAP, urban farming, issues around the 2020 census. That was just the past year. So that was one issue that I was really focused on, very much a local issue, but also escalating that to the national level because it impacts every single person in every state. And so that was an issue that I worked on as well. And then in terms of issues around housing, that's a huge issue with the crisis that we have around the US. That was another issue that, was very local, but also something that we needed to address at a national level. So a lot of different, ways that I was engaged in local policy, but also kind of escalating that up and working with our team in DC on the national policy piece. And then in terms of other touch points, so I didn't address this earlier, but after working for Congressman Ilhan Omar for almost 2 years, I worked for a nonprofit in the Twin Cities called the Minnesota Freedom Fund. And in that role, I focused on our immigration efforts. And so that was also like local immigration policy and advocacy, and then also escalating that to the national level. We also worked very closely with national organization that focused specifically on bail and bond funds, because we're a bail fund that specifically works to bail people out who are in jail, and then also bond people who are in immigration detention out as well. And so I focused on the immigration side of things and really supported people who were in detention, trying to get them out on bond, and then also once they released back with their families, providing them with follow-up support. And so in that role, I was really trying to figure out like what ways that we can engage in policy issues locally to support undocumented folks, to support their families, because there's a lot of policy out there that doesn't include people who are undocumented, that doesn't, think about them as people who have needs and should have access to all the things that we have access to. And that's, saying a lot, because BIPOC folks don't have access to a lot of, services and things that, white folks do. And so there's a difference there as well. And so how can we address those issues through policy and advocacy? So that was another kind of touch point for me and something that I was really passionate about personally. And then I think in general, in terms of just pieces of advice, I think for me, I really thought that, it's important to have a specific job, like you said, Amanda, like a job that I needed to have full time doing that work in order to make a difference. That's really not true. I think I was able to make a difference in the volunteer roles that I had. I actually was going to start out with the Minnesota Freedom Fund as a volunteer, and then a job opportunity opened up. That was because I put myself out there and wanted to engage in that way. So I think a lot of times opportunities open up when you try to think of things in a different way and don't, think that you necessarily have to find a job or get a job opportunity out of something. If you're interested and passionate about the work, reach out to that organization. They're more than likely going to want to have volunteers to support them, or have initiatives where they need that kind of support from the community. And I think just across the board, in terms of internships, fellowships, those are all really great experiences to really get into. It doesn't have to be something where you get paid. I know obviously a lot of times you need to have money, you need to have income, that's definitely a priority, but think of other ways that you can engage and connect in the community, because those are really how you're going to have doors open up for you and make connections that you really didn't think might last, or that you might continue to connect with those people down the line. So just think about those things as well, because I definitely I feel didn't really emphasize that enough. And now kind of looking back, I'm wow, I didn't even realize all the different people and resources that I got done through all the different experiences that I've had, just because of the network and the people that I was able to connect with.
Thank you. I love, Bishu, how you still brought it full circle back to networking and the human relationships piece that we talked about. That was fantastic.
It just always happens.
I love it. I love it. We need to bring you in to talk about how to network. I think that's the next thing. So mental note here.
I would love to.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that with us too. And Nithya, I want to ask you a question. It's kind of shifting a little bit, but so just so folks know, if they're not aware, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, all of our Capital Pathways programming and the internship experiences that most folks had were virtual. And I know for you, Nithya, that the Hennepin Healthcare experience was virtual, as you mentioned. And I'm curious, can you talk a little bit about how you navigated that remote learning environment and how you still made it a good experience through that? And then second part of the question too is, what were some of your key takeaways, just thinking back to the time in the program? And I'm specifically curious if you can share a little bit about, how did your host organization keep you engaged, even in a virtual environment? I think that might be helpful information for some of the hosts that we have on here, or folks who are engaging their employees or other individuals virtually as well.
So first, in terms of the navigating the remote learning environment, I think it's gotten to that point where everything's been online long enough that it wasn't really a challenge to navigate. I'm an expert in Google Calendar, and I'm an expert in joining the Zoom and knowing which account I'm logged into and that type of stuff. But I think I'm a people person. I love to talk to people. I feel like everyone in Capital Pathways knows I just kind of don't shut up. I just am always making connections. I just love to do that. And it was easy. I felt like the way that we did that was we, as Capital Pathways interns, we held a lot of community with each other. So we were always asking each other what things are people doing in their workplaces? Does anyone need any additional support? Whenever we join our cohort meetings, we would have some time to just talk to each other about the work that we were doing. Does anyone have concerns? And we advocated for each other a lot as well. But then in terms of my placement at Hennepin Healthcare, I also felt I had a really strong community with both of my supervisors and the other intern who was working with us, because we had weekly check-ins. We were constantly emailing each other. I was never discouraged from asking questions, which I think is a really important piece. When everything is virtual, it can feel very isolating, especially when you're doing legislative work, because you're kind of just given your tasks and you're told to attend the meetings that you need to attend and take the notes that you need to. You're not really walking to another meeting with another person where you can talk about what's going to happen. You're kind of just experiencing it all on your own. So having an open space for questions and having no shame about asking those questions was really important for me. I feel because I felt I could just send my boss an email and be hey, I'm wondering about this, or hey, this doesn't make too much sense to me, or I don't agree with this, or that type of thing. Made it easier to navigate and made it feel less isolating. And just a me thing, I felt it really helpful to have just kind of a sense of humor about the whole thing. Whenever I'd send my boss notes from the committee meetings, I'd give my own little thoughts about the representatives, which not that I'll share here, but it just kind of made it feel more lighthearted and yeah, sure, we were in a crisis, or we still are in a crisis, I guess, but just having a sense of humor, not taking it too seriously, because I think it would be really easy to be oh, it sucks that I didn't get to have the regular experience that everyone else has. And obviously it does suck, but I feel just there are benefits, I guess, and there are different things that people experienced, and just having a sense of humor and having a positive outlook, I feel helped me a lot, especially. And the other question was main takeaways, right?
Yeah, if you're talking to host organizations or just folks, again, working in that environment, what would you recommend to them to keep people engaged?
I think having those weekly check-ins and constantly reaching out to your interns is really helpful, giving them new tasks and having it be more of a collaboration thing rather than a supervisor intern relationship. Because definitely with my organization, I felt it was more of a collaboration of me being I'm good at these things and I'd like to do these things and I'd like to do more in this area, and it being more of a conversation rather than being these are the things you're doing, these are the meetings you're attending, whether or not you're interested in them. I think having it be collaborative is ways to keep people engaged, and also ways to make them feel less isolated. Because I think the name of the game in navigating COVID is beating back that isolation. And I think you do that by having removing a lot of those bureaucratic barriers between interns and supervisors and having it be a collaborative experience.
Thank you. Love that. And I think that's such a good tangible takeaway that I hope will be beneficial for folks who are on the call tonight too. So my last question before I turn it over to see if the audience has any questions. So audience, participants, folks on the call, please start thinking of questions that you have for our wonderful panelists. I want to know from both of you, and Beef 2, I'll start with you. I'm curious, and Beef 2, let me know if you have to jump too. I know you had something else going on, so we'll kind of navigate as we go, but would love to hear from both of you. So I'm a really strong believer that joy is super important, and it's a big part of policymaking and the work that we do. And for me, it really supports my ability to be resilient in these spaces. It's not something we talk about a lot. So I'm really curious, and I know I'm springing this question on, and I don't think you got to see it beforehand. So take a minute or tell me you don't want to answer it, however we want to work through it. But I'm curious, what role do you see joy, or you can translate that to fun or however you want to define it. But what role do you see joy playing in policy making? And what are some ways that you've incorporated that in your work, whether in the positions that we're currently talking about or just in throughout your kind of career journey so far? It's a tough question, y'all. You see, our panelists are thinking. I love it.
I can go. I think a couple of different things. I really like this question. I think it's so important to really focus on the joy, the positivity, the like optimism, like all the good energy you can bring into these spaces, because so much of it is just so, it can be frustrating, challenging, just so many negative emotions can come, in spaces when you're trying to navigate policy. And also, there aren't a lot of folks from the BIPOC community who are engaged in that, and so it can be hard when you're feeling a little bit isolated, or that you maybe can't relate to folks in the room that you're in, that kind of thing. So just to say, I like this question a lot. I think a couple of different things that bring me joy when I think about like policy making. There have been a lot of times in my experience, specifically working for Congressman Ilhan Omar, where I was in a lot of spaces with people of color, with Black folks, with Black elected officials, which was really exciting for me. Specifically working for Congresswoman Ilhan Omar and her background, like that was something that really energized me, that made me like so excited to do the work that I was doing, because it's for someone who looks like me, for someone, who I can relate to. And being able to have that connection, I feel like brought a lot of joy and a lot of passion to the work that I'm doing. And then I think also, as I was saying, like in creating policy with people who have that understanding of the needs, and like not just like the needs, but like they have gone through it themselves. Like they know what the community needs, because like they have faced the different issues that the community like needs to have supported and needs to have changes in. And so that was something that was really joyful for me, to be able to be a part of that, to be able to be a part of those conversations, those meetings, the events, all of that, I think is really joyful. And then I think also we're creating policy, or we're working with different leaders, organizations across the board. We really, obviously are focusing on people of color and people in those different areas, just working on something that feels good to people, that feels like, wow, like this is honestly, like if this passes, or if like we're able to move this forward, like this is truly going to change our community. That really brings me a lot of joy, to feel like, wow, we're really like doing something that like actually is going to impact our communities and change them for the better. That's something that I can take with me, and that I just loved having that feeling when I was working with different organizations, or even with constituents. They would bring like different ideas, or things to the table that they wanted to discuss, or they wanted to see if we could do something about, and like just having and seeing that passion from people, and knowing that we can translate that into something is really exciting. And then specifically young people. There's so many young people that we connected with, and they're just like wanting to get more engaged in policy. And it's like, oh, this is so awesome. I never would have done this when I was a kid. I didn't even know I could, be engaged at that level at that time. And so that was really exciting as well. So a lot of different like pieces, I think.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for sharing. Nithya, how about you?
Yeah, this is definitely something I've thought about a lot. And there are two things that I read that I would recommend to everyone who's a person of color entering like policy spaces or activism spaces. And that's Pleasure Activism by Adrienne Marie Brown and Uses of the Erotic by Audre Lorde. And they talk a lot about like what it means to have joy, especially as a person of color. Because I think like sometimes like as people of color, when we come from, poor backgrounds, or we come from families that tell us like an opportunity is an opportunity, we can kind of just like take what we can get. And it can be kind of like sometimes soul crushing, like when you do work that like drains your spirit, not work that you want to do. And there was a quote from Pleasure Activism that was like, firm no's lead to erotic yeses. And that's like saying like knowing what you want and being able to voice what you want, and then doing what you want from there can lead to like the most joy possible, and like to really like look inside yourself and think like, is this something that I really want to do? Is it something that will benefit my community? Is it something that will benefit me in the process? Because I think a lot of people, especially women of color, we take on a lot of labor and we don't necessarily feel the benefits of it, and we're taken advantage of. And especially a lot of these policy spaces, we're seen as just like tokens rather than people who have feelings and who also like want to feel joy outside of the work that we do. So just like being able to like, that's something that I've definitely thought more about. Like, is this something that I really want to do? And like, well, is me saying this thing going to be seen as unprofessional, or is it going to be me seen as like me saying like what I really want to say? And like, will I be able to feel joy as a result of that? Is definitely something that I've thought a lot about, and something that I realized like, yeah, like saying what you want is a joyful thing. It's an attractive thing. It's an erotic thing. And then from that, like, is even more joyful. And that's something that's radical, especially for people of color who've never been taught that our wants like matter. I don't know if that makes any sense at all, but that's what I would say.
100%. Yeah, that was good. There were so many things in what you said that I just want to like highlight too, and I know I don't have time, but I really appreciate the book references too, because both of those authors, I think you're spot on. They definitely talk about this, and I think it's an abnormal thing or not talked about enough. Like, what does joy and happiness and fun look like in these spaces? So thank you both so much. We do want to get to Q&A if we have time, but I just saw that Marco joined us. So I'd love to invite Marco up on the screen with us. See if it works. All right. Hey, Marco, I see you there. There we go. Yes.
Awesome. Hello. Currently at the action right now at Gold Medal Park, protesting line 3. And so apologies for being in my car. I'm a little bit sweaty, but I just got done speaking, but really happy to be here with y'all.
That is amazing. Thank you, Marco. Is it safe? Can I ask you a couple of questions?
Yeah, it's safe over here.
Okay, perfect. Well, hey, thank you so much. And I think that is just so powerful that you are literally like policy making, policy changing in action as you're on this panel. So that is pretty awesome. Marco, just looking at time too, I'd love if you could introduce yourself. What I've been asking the other panelists to do is just share, who they are, what you're currently up to, which we just heard, what you're literally currently up to, which is amazing. And if you can talk a little bit about your participation in Capital Pathways, specifically how it maybe influenced your role in policy making or how you understand policy making.
Great. And so, yeah, my name is Marco Hernandez. I use he, they pronouns. I am the public policy director at Copal, which is a Latino-led nonprofit in Minneapolis, but we do work statewide. I also have other roles too. I'm an appointed member on the Governor's Advisory Council on Climate Change. I'm also a board member on the Minnesota Council on Latino Affairs. And last but not least, the executive vice president of Minnesota Young DFL. And so there's quite a lot that I do, but all of them really tying back together to public policy and trying to enact good and positive change for those who are BIPOC and living in frontline communities across the state and country. And so, and so with Capital Pathways, I had the opportunity to intern at the Minnesota Department of Commerce. And if it wasn't for that experience of working at an agency, seeing how it is to lobby, because I worked at the government and external affairs division. So it was a lot of lobbying, speaking with legislators and going to committee meetings and actually getting to know the legislative process in the state. And that really helped me out with getting more internships in the future, more connections as well, because the really important thing when it comes to an internship is networking. And so Capital Pathways definitely helped us with that, with our headshots, helping us with our elevator pitch. And I still use it to this day. And so really thankful for the resources and the work Capital Pathways has done to help smooth the pathway to success for me.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Marco. Nithya put in the chat, word of the day is networking. And we're laughing when you said it because Beef 2 has brought up networking and the power of it. So it's actually really cool that you came in and you're talking about the same thing. So I'm just looking at time. I want to do a quick check to see if there are any questions from the audience, because I do have a question for you, Marco, that I'd love to hear your response to, but I want to see if anybody has anything, please unmute, drop it in the chat, or you can direct message me too, or you can raise your hand with the reaction function. So let me just scan and see if we have anyone doing that. Okay. No, well, if there are questions that come up, please feel free to, again, drop them in the chat or message me. But Marco, I'm really curious. So folks may not know this, that you are, I believe through Copal, that you are a host also. So you were a Capital Pathways intern, you're a host now. And I'm really curious if you can talk about, what are some ways that hosts can really support their BIPOC, Capital Pathways fellows that are coming in? And what have you done that's kind of been effective?
So as you can imagine, interning at the Department of Commerce, the diversity, it was there in small numbers. I was fortunate enough to have one of my supervisors be Megan Verdeja, another fellow Latina working at the Government and External Affairs Division at Commerce, but that was pretty much it as the BIPOC representation at Commerce. And so when last year or 6 months ago, when we made the decision to partner with Capital Pathways and to be a host organization, and then to be told that I would be supervising our Capital Pathways intern, I was really excited and elated because this was the chance for me to really not only show, but to do the things that I wanted my supervisor to do for me, or just not so much as hand holding, but being very empathetic, always, celebrating any and every types of victories too. So pretty much just like going against the white supremacist work culture that a lot of the times, unfortunately, when working in government, our BIPOC brethren have to experience. I tried to do the opposite. And so with Jessica, who was our Capital Pathways intern, it was being patient, always allowing any type of question, inviting her to all of the meetings that I've been up to and shadowing me when I'm speaking with legislators, or any coalition meetings that I've run or participate in, as well as we did a small, not book report, but just we were reading How to Be an Anti-Racist, which focuses on how to do that when it comes to policy making. And it was really great to read the chapters with Jessica, answer questions. And I wasn't acting as if I knew all the answers. I was at the same boat as Jessica too, unlearning the colonist ideology that we've had to learn growing up here in the United States, and just, being as one, and just being being as kind as possible to allow any type of growth with my Capital Pathway intern. And I'll keep doing that in the future too with our future Capital Pathways intern as well.
Love it. Thank you. And thank you for sharing such, again, very great techniques that I think so many people can apply when they're bringing in Capital Pathways interns or just working with folks in general. So just looking at our time, I just want to say thank you. And I hope everyone will join me in, thanking our panelists today, Beef 2, Marco, Nithya. Thank you so much for being here with us today and for sharing your experiences. It was just truly for me, a joyful conversation. And I just really appreciated being able to see you all again and to see new faces too. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Great. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, everyone.
And then now what I'm going to do is hand it over. So I'm really, really excited to welcome our keynote speaker, Representative Rena Moran, someone that I truly, truly admire and have been a fan of for many, many years. And Representative Moran is going to say a few words to our student cohort and attendees this evening. I know Representative Moran has been a longtime supporter of the program, which we are sincerely grateful for, is a true trailblazer who became the first African-American to represent District 65A in 2010, no small accomplishment, and an overall powerhouse in policymaking in the state, and I would say nationally as well. So thank you so much, Representative Moran. Welcome, and I will turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, Amanda, for the great introduction. Yes, I am a fan of Capital Pathways. So for everyone, again, my name is Representative Rena Moran, and I serve District 65A in the Minnesota House. This district includes the Frogtown, the historical Rondo community, Summer University, and Hamlin Midway neighborhoods, along with part of Cathedral Hill and the North End. And I also have the opportunity to serve as chair of Ways and Means Committee in the Minnesota House of Representatives. And I want to truly thank Capital Pathways for the opportunity to share a few words with you this evening. I would take about 10 minutes to talk about my journey as an elected official, whose life mission is really just being a mother of 7 children. Everything that I do is about creating a better tomorrow for my children and grandkids. So as stated by Amanda, in 2010, I was elected as the first African-American to represent St. Paul in the legislature. And I was sworn into the Minnesota House in 2011. And as Amanda stated, I was one of 3 Black lawmakers and the first African-American to represent St. Paul, and one of 4 posse members. And that was in 2011. In 2011, when I was first elected, I must say that I was proud, I was excited, and I was ready to get to work. Although I wasn't even sure about what that was that I was doing, because I had never ran for public office. This was my first run for public office, and it was a win. But I remember sitting in my office, and I was having folks make appointments to meet with me. I had had many appointments, many of all who I had never seen before, many who I didn't know anything about, and all who didn't look like me. And I wondered, wow, I just got elected. I'm excited. I'm proud to be here. I'm a little bit scared to be here. Don't know what tomorrow means. But I thought to myself, where are my people? The people who worked so hard on my campaign, the people who believed in me, the people who made it possible for me to be here today. And quite frankly, I did. I felt a little abandoned, right? Because all the things that the Minnesota House of Representatives and the legislature represent in creating policies and practices, I felt like, you know, I was elected and now I'm here all alone. And so within 30 days of being in my office, talking to people, having people come before me, telling me why I should support their program or their initiative or the bills that they brought forward. After 30 days, I said, you know, I have to bring the wisdom of my community into this body, because I know that there are awesome work being done by nonprofits back in the community that is transformational. And there are, these nonprofits are like changing lives of entire families through a comprehensive approach. And there's no one in this body who knows anything about them and the work they do. And that's not okay. That's not okay. So I went on to connect with the Minnesota Council of Nonprofits in hopes that they could educate a group of nonprofit organizations led by posse members, and they would create a process where they know that they have the ability to educate them, to educate us in the work and in the process of the legislature, right? Because I would go back to my community, I would talk to my, you know, the small nonprofit who was working on a dime to transforming people's lives. And they was like, either they didn't have the capacity to be at the Capitol, or they would talk to me about all the things that they could not do, that they could not lobby. And it's a difference between lobbying and educating. So I just wanted to counsel nonprofit to bring these nonprofits together to more inform them on what they could do. And that happened in my first term. They worked with nonprofits of color to really begin to inform and engage them on what they could do at the legislature. And then in 2013, I became a Humphrey Fellow. And with a group of other fellows from the private, public, philanthropic, community, we all come together as Humphrey Fellows to kind of like, get to know each other, network, build relationships, and hopefully come together around common causes. But there was a group of us that came together as fellows where we had to focus on a project together. And for me, I was still in this mode about I need to see, and I want to see more people of color at the Capitol. Just walking around, meeting with their legislators, bringing language that can be turned into a bill to move through the body, sharing their stories. It is so important that we are a part of creating a narrative for our communities, for our families, for our workforce. It's important that we do that. And so our group came together around the need to engage more people of color in the legislature. That was our project, right? Learning why posse members are not engaged at the Capitol, and then creating a process that can keep them engaged and learning about what goes on to the Capitol. So let me just say this, because today Capitol Pathway is a product of that project, with members of my cohort being the founders of Capitol Pathways. Isn't that awesome? That is awesome. That they just took it to a whole nother level and made it a reality of where we are today. So at the Capitol, one of my most important responsibilities is to ensure that each and every Minnesotans, no matter their background or the status in life, that they have the opportunity to receive a quality education, that small minority businesses are invested in, that our nonprofits are seen as part of the solution, and that we are investing in our community through a race-conscious lens. And you might say, no, I don't think you would say why race-conscious lens, because in my mind, everything is about race. Everything. Our country was built, foundation was built on race. It was built on slavery, right? So, but in order to do this in an effective way, and to engage our community, we need more folks of color engaged at the Capitol, learning the process, building relationships, or through Marco Hernandez language, networking, right? Changing the narrative and getting uncomfortable to be comfortable. We, as people of color who see the Capitol not as a welcoming place all the time, we want to have to get uncomfortable to be comfortable in the space where we're needed. And so this year at the House, I got to enter a new role as chair of the Ways and Means Committee. This committee oversees the state budget, and advancing to this leadership role is a big accomplishment for me personally and professionally. But it's an even bigger deal for our community and our communities of color all across the state. This job affords me the opportunity, well, not just the opportunity, but the responsibility to lift up voices that has been left out of places like the state capitol for far too long. And I want to say to this cohort of Capitol Pathways that your voice, your perspective, your solution, and your knowledge is needed at the Capitol. What an awesome opportunity for you to be a part of this cohort and to learn the skills and all the skills that I heard Marco Hernandez talk about, right? To be put with organizations or entities that are at the Capitol. advocating for whatever they advocate for. And I know that many of you are interested in social justice causes and you are passionate about improving our world. As we've seen over the past year, there's an incredible amount of power through individuals come together towards common ideas. So I encourage you to find causes that you're passionate about and get involved. Always feel welcome to contact your elected officials from the City Hall all the way up to the US Capitol. You are empowered to choose what issues are important to you and your own values, and devote yourself to solving whatever problems or eliminating whichever injustice out there you encounter. And yes, running for public office. Running for public office can be a part of your journey as it was a part of mine. Often we believe that we're not the one, that we need a little bit more information. We need a little bit more, experience. And I say to you, you have exactly what is needed at this time and at this moment. And I hope you will explore public service someday. Because again, I'm going to say this, we need your voice, we need your experience, and we need your expertise in the Capitol. And we need your stories. Your stories are powerful. The last year was full of many dark days, and this has been an extremely difficult time for folks, but even more difficult for our communities with this pandemic. The challenges facing BIPOC Minnesotans are numerous. They are persistent and urgent, and have been greatly compounded by COVID-19. The impact on our health and our economic security. The inequities are still very real. The challenges are still very real. The trauma for too many is still very real. Education, housing, economic opportunity, health outcomes, and experiences with law enforcement are entities that we have to bring our voices and our perspectives to. And there are still numerous difficulties for our Black, Indigenous, and communities of color where they are being encountered every single day. And while COVID-19 is on its way out, every effort to eliminate the virus doesn't fundamentally alter our outlook for the future. But you, and we have the opportunity to make the change that we all want to see. And this won't be realized though if we stand by on the sidelines and just hope that other people will work on solving problems. They may not solve it the way you believe it needs to be solved. If this is the path you take, we can only expect the status quo. The same groups of individuals that have had all the power and influence will continue to exercise it. And that's not acceptable. It's not okay. I would say they need us, for a matter of fact, to move us into the 21st century. So it's not acceptable for us, and it's not acceptable for our children, for our grandchildren, and for future generations. So together, we all have to be committed to ensuring that our families and our community can experience the future that we envision. We have to be a part of that. And everything is about politics, everything. So some of the steps we can take might seem small, and none of us can be expected to change the world overnight. I want you to remember that the work we have to do is not going to happen immediately. It's not going to happen overnight. This is a marathon, not a sprint. Change doesn't happen in one session or two or three or 10. But in our own way, you can help improve our community, our state, and our world. So we can all experience the brighter, more equitable, the more prosperous future that we all deserve. And the fact that you're part of Capital Pathway, it demonstrates that you're interested in seeing this change. Let's all keep the momentum moving forward. And as we do that, I want you to bring your friends, your neighbors, and your families into our collective effort to build a stronger future for all. And I know we can all persevere through these challenges because it's who we are. We are resilient. We are resilient people, and we can persevere. And I know that you're all committed to ensuring that our communities, that our families, and our business can succeed and achieve. So in closing, I want to say that I hope that you all feel free to be in contact with me anytime. My work and the work that we need to do as individuals and as a collective are many. We went into this legislative session to do our work through an equity lens after we declared racism as a public health crisis. We talked about it in every committee. Our chairs have been committed to bringing equity into their work. And for many, for many, when we talk about equity, I'm going to define equity as it simply is about fairness. It's about justice. It's about being inclusive. That's what equity is about. Just about being fair. Fair of our investment, fair when we put policies into bills that create practices that plays out back in our community. We want it to be fair and just. And so as you continue to do your work, find ways, let's stay connected. Contact me because I do my work based on what I'm hearing back out in communities across the state of Minnesota. So please, you can send me an email at rep.rena.moran@house.mn. And my office phone number is 651-296-5158. And I will share it in the chat box for you. And you can also connect with me on Facebook, where I frequently share information from the Capitol at facebook.com/rep.rena.moran. Capitol Pathway is a pathway for you to get a better understanding around policies. It's an opportunity through your placement for you to network, but also build relationships. Relationships are key. Relationships are important. And for me, I truly believe it's important for you to also build relationship with people who do not always think the way you think. So expand your worldview. Because when you expand your worldview, you will expand others' worldview in a way that they have not seen it and know it. And so again, I just want to thank you for the chance to spend some time with you today through these words and through my experience. And now through my expertise as a state legislator, who is no longer just a mother and a grandmother, but who is working really hard to create a more fair and just state for all of us. So thank you and take care.
Thank you so much, Representative Moran. We are really grateful to have spent this time with you today. You are an awesome leader and an inspiration, and it has been just really special to have you with us here tonight. So thank you so much on behalf of our students and the Citizens League.
And Kate, I know Kate.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
A lot of the stuff together. See you here.
So yeah, it's my role to bring us to the end of our event tonight. So I loved hearing from Representative Moran. I loved our panel, and I especially loved hearing our students share their experiences. Thank you all for joining us here tonight, and special congrats to our students. Stay with us because we have our slideshow honoring each one of them. But and they're now the newest alumni of Capitol Pathways, of course, our newest alums. Congratulations. My name is Kate Cimino, and it's really my honor and pleasure to serve as Executive Director of the Citizens League. it's been about 8 months now, so I'm still pretty new to this role, but Capital Pathways has really had a special place in my heart since the very beginning. I love that we've heard tonight about Capital Pathways' origin story. If it was a superhero whole movie about Capital Pathways, or it was this amazing group of folks who connected through the Humphrey Policy Fellows program, which I was leading at the time in my former role over at the Humphrey School. And something that really brought me joy, to Amanda's question, is seeing these sparks of connection that occur between people in unexpected ways, and how those sparks and ideas can grow and build into something really, really great. And that is what Capital Pathways was from the very beginning, was something really, really great. It's exciting, it's impactful, and it's making real change, both in our students' lives and at the state legislature. And you, all of you here tonight, are making that happen. Whether you're a student, a former student, a host, a friend, or a donor, you're making Capital Pathways happen, and we are really, truly grateful for you. So as you heard from Kalia, we have been raising money to bring Capital Pathways back in full force for 2022 in person, and ensure that our students who are Black, Indigenous, and people of color continue to have this opportunity to really learn about and explore and be involved in policy making, not just in that one semester, but for years to come. So I want to thank you. I'm humbled to see that we have gifts that have been coming in during this program. Thank you to Laura and Pahua, of course, and Aaron and Bridget for your gifts. And gifts continue to come in. So thank you again, everybody. And our work would not be possible without this support. If you're moved by this and you want to support Capital Pathways at any level, it makes a difference. So I'll invite you to make your gift. You can give directly to the program to the link listed on the page here. And you can find the link on the page, or text Citizens League to 243-725. 243-725, text Citizens League. And this truly makes a difference. Over the past few days, just the last, like this week, I've had an opportunity to connect with a few different folks who happen to be Capital Pathways hosts this year. And we were meeting to talk about something else, but every single person said, we love Capital Pathways. We love our intern. They're so great. And like, they're telling me this and my face hurts from smiling, because I'm hearing about how their interns are such an important part of their team this legislative session. And it's just so good to hear that. So thank you, special thank you to our hosts for all of the great energy that you're putting into the relationship with our students this year and the learning experience. We all know this program would not be possible without the amazing work of our program manager, Kalia Zhang. Kalia, some of you know, was a member of that very first cohort when it first started, and then she went on to lead this program and build it into this robust and strong experience that it is today. And in particular this year, Kalia showed so much flexibility and sensitivity, convening the group this year, adapting the program not only to a virtual environment, but also navigating through the incredible difficulties that we experienced this year, especially in the Twin Cities and in Minnesota. So thank you, Kalia, for your leadership and really bringing your whole full self to this work. I want to say a huge thank you to our champion sponsors, Frederickson and Byron, and Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Minnesota. Thank you to our other event sponsors and major program funders, and of course our individual donors and each and every one of you who took the time to join tonight. Thanks to the Citizens League team. This team is amazing. Kalia Zhang, Amanda Kunjbahari, Jacob Tainter, Sarah Stout-Miller, and Nancy Hegdahl. You are the best. And also our board, we have such a great board and many are here tonight. It's always great to have you with us, and your support and your ability to champion this program has really helped it to thrive. I'm gonna ask that, I think this is it. We've got our closing slide. I see Pahua said she misses the team. Pahua, they're the best team and you always knew that. So they're fantastic. I have a PowerPoint. I think I'll ask Jacob to start to bring that up. Let's see. Usually when we're in person, we bring folks up to stage to get their certificate. Instead, we mailed them, and we're going to celebrate their accomplishments. We've prepared a closing slideshow in their honor. So please sit back, grab a beverage, and congratulations to our students. And thank you so much for your commitment to the program this year. And guests, thank you for coming, and have a great night, everyone.